served on the police department there for 6 years before coming to the Terre Haute Police Department for 16 years. And as was mentioned in the funeral, you know, he started when he was a very young man in his early 20s, and this was his love, his passion, and he did exactly what he wanted to do.
Yes, and that speaks volumes, to say the least. And I mean, he gave, literally, I know it's cliche, the ultimate sacrifice. That's what he did. He died doing what he loved for somebody else.
He ran toward danger instead of away from danger, and we need more people like him in this world. Again, you're seeing other police agencies, Montezuma, West Lafayette. You saw all over the Wabash Valley, all over Indiana. South Bend is represented, Carmel, Indianapolis. IU police are here, conservation officers, firefighters. They are all here to pay their respects and to say thank you to Rob Pitts and ultimately to his family. You have to go to these quite often, unfortunately.
Yeah, everyone's one too many.
Good point. Everyone is one too many. What you will also be seeing after the procession, when we get to the cemetery, are a lot of beautiful flowers, and there's a lot of symbolism to those flowers, to the white carnations that the men and women in the service are wearing. Scott is wearing one here with me here today, an upside-down white carnation with a red dot. Tell us again what that means.
So the white carnation, the white part itself is for purity and promise, meaning we took an oath. That's what it stands for, and we try to do our job, unabated to do our job. The red obviously is for the blood that was shed while doing that job, while fulfilling that promise that we made. Unfortunately, we don't want to have the bloodshed. It does happen. And that results in the ultimate sacrifice. And it points down over the heart. These will later be dropped on top of the casket at the cemetery as a final salute, handshake, farewell to Rob. About
1,500 of those white carnations have been prepared by florists here in Terre Haute for that reason. The band, the black band of mourning, that is a symbolism of mourning.
It is. Again, that goes back to the old days, long time ago, when somebody lost a family member, they would have a black band on their arm, so other people would recognize recognize them for the loss that they had just suffered. So that's where it became in the police tradition. The fire department does it too. And then the thin blue line component, obviously, is we are between order and chaos, community and chaos, and that's where we are. It's not a thin blue wall of silence or anything that's been put out there. It is, we are there to try to prevent something bad happening to our community.
Keeping the peace there between the community and chaos.
And that's what Rob was trying to do.
Absolutely. And your red band, as we saw on many of the officers there at the funeral, the red cord is a sign of bloodshed.
It is, and it's the only time we wear this is a line of duty death, in the line of duty death, and that's all.
Okay. Outside the Holman Center, the motorcade has not, the coach has not taken off yet, as far as we know. No, it has not. You can see the white funeral coach still parked there and the hundreds of vehicles ready for the procession. But what you saw earlier, there you go, there's U.S. Customs and Borders, city police, state police, conservation officers, sheriff's deputies from all over the state. We saw Indianapolis, Carmel, Shelburne, Jasonville, Montezuma, Michigan City. My goodness, it just doesn't end.
Yeah, by us, Mishawaka's here, St. Joe County's here. I believe I saw a Niles officer in Michigan down here as well. So, yeah, they are from all over the place.
But in return, Terre Haute Police Department officers often go do the same.
Yes.
Okay. This is not the start of the procession, however, correct?
Right. You'll see when you'll get a motion, there'll be an officer. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you see this picture here. There's a United States Air Force. They have been phenomenal in help. Unfortunately, they were with us 7 years ago as well, so they knew how people needed to park, where they needed to get, how they needed to leave after they were parked. They've been out since before sunrise this morning, making sure everything was intact.
And just to refresh your memory, it was just 7 years ago, this coming July, 7 years ago, that Officer Brent Long was killed in the line of duty, and Rob and Brent were friends. They were colleagues and friends. We certainly don't want to have even one, much less two, in 7 years.
Right. Brothers in arms and brothers in wings now.
Yes, absolutely.
The whole fly high thing, I still can't get over that when I see it and when I hear it. Can't get much higher than heaven. So they're hopefully high-fiving each other right now.
Brothers in wings, I like that. I like that very much. These are the men and women who are going ahead then to the cemetery, correct, to
Yes.
get things set up there. There will be a long burial, ceremonial burial there at the cemetery. It will not happen for another hour and a half or 2 hours because this procession will be so long.
Right.
But there will be lots of tradition there. Gun salutes, taps, Amazing Grace, all things that are historically traditional and symbolic in the military and law enforcement, all sorts of things.
Probably bagpipers as well. They're riderless horse. I'll be curious to see what's actually lined up once at the cemetery. And you'll be able to tell what's lined up. And looking at it now, this may be a mingle. This could be the beginning, and then you'll see the coach and everybody else fall in behind these vehicles here. There was roughly, I'm going to say, between 25 and 50 vehicles that would have headed out in the advance party, and I think we're beyond that, so you're starting to see the actual procession lineup itself. The procession is official once the coach starts to move.
Okay. It will not move very far at first, as its first stop will be Terre Haute Police Department, which, if you have visited the headquarters, there's a beautiful memorial there. Officer Rob Pitt's car that is there, now full of flowers and mementos and statues and notes, not only to Rob but also to his 5-year-old son Dakota, thanking the family for their sacrifice, thanking Rob for his sacrifice, and thanking the Terre Haute Police Department for their sacrifice. This is earlier in the week, that black curtain, it's a shroud, again, another sign of mourning.
Yes. Yeah, that's early video, and I can guarantee they probably made several trips of removing items, not to discard them, but so there's room for more to save them for memories, pictures or actual storage. And I bet you by the time this week's over with, after this occurs, people who weren't able to make it out still want to come and pay their respects. So they may be working or some other commitment that they were not able to get away will stop by there, and it'll just keep growing with the items that are dropped off and the thank yous that are received.
We have a number of beautiful pieces that our photographers put together here that we do want to get to in time of reflection. I don't want to get to that until after we make our first stop at the Terre Haute Police Department and proceed from there. But just beautiful pieces of people saying thank you. We've talked to a number of wives of police officers throughout the Wabash Valley who, that's the fear they live every day, of their husbands not coming home, the children of their fathers not coming home. It
is, and imagine, if you will, when your officer, your loved one, it doesn't matter, male, female, it doesn't make any difference. When your loved one, your good friend, raised their right hand, you didn't have a say-so in it, and you have no choice but to accept whatever it is what it is. And that's got to be pretty difficult. I mean, any officer that raised their right hand and swore pretty much knows, and we swore we knew what we were getting into, but how fair is it? How fair is it to your family who doesn't have that say-so?
They are the support, they are the rock, and as you said, I'm sure Rob's mom is the rock there for them as well. Rob leaves behind 3 children, a grown man, and also a teenage-age daughter,
yes,
and 5-year-old Dakota. We got to know a little bit about 5-year-old Dakota and how sweet he was, and he left a note. We're going to show pictures of that. He left a note for his daddy that says, "Daddy, I miss you," and boy, he loved that car along with his dad. There you're looking at Dakota in that car at the memorial. Precious little boy.
Yeah, and it's got to be so difficult. I mean, think about it. We were all 5 at one point in time, and trying to fathom what really happened.
Yeah, and the Terre Haute Police Department will be his brothers and his surrogate fathers for many, many years to come. In fact, Chief John Plassey last night presented Dakota with his own badge because he loved to look at his daddy's badge. They also framed Rob's badge number 196, and put it in a frame for them for a keepsake for the family. Things that I'm sure they'll cherish.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about at the cemetery rather, the burial, the committal service. There's several things you could call it. There will be the pallbearers coming in first. Is there an order, a ceremonial order that they'll come into the cemetery?
Oh yes. So they'll be directed driving the vehicles, but when they get out of the vehicles, there's a specific order. Be let in by one of the chaplains and the OIC, officer in charge. You have the honorary pallbearers and obviously the pallbearers themselves, and a flagfold detail, so there'll be specifics. With the flags or the color detail itself, they'll already be pre-posted once they do the walk-up. They will walk in front of the coach all the way to gravesite, then they will break off to their assigned locations. And you'll hear bagpipes, you'll obviously hear taps, you'll hear a 21-gun salute. That's pretty common with all this. That tends to go pretty fast, and then you'll see a flagfold, which may take a little bit longer because they want that absolute perfect. There's specifics that has to be done with folding that flag.
Certain corners and certain angles.
Oh yes, and certain amount of folds. There'll be 13 folds in there. If it's not, they will unfold it and do it again until there are. And it could take 5 minutes or 50 minutes, doesn't matter. But that's going to be the last presentation of that American flag to the family. And that is a very heartfelt presentation, which will be done by the chief. And the chief will say something similar to, on behalf of the Terre Haute Police Department, the city of Terre Haute, maybe the country, whatever the chief decides he's going to say, it'll be a thank you. And I can imagine it'll be very emotional as well.
Oh, I can imagine. John Plassey said earlier in the week, and he reiterated it again at the funeral, I miss my friend. I lost my friend. Not only a colleague, but in his case, a friend, a dear friend.
A friend, and you can't deny it, a brother. A brother by the same hand.
Absolutely. There will be what's called a file by at the cemetery with these white carnations. Explain what the officers will do there. They'll file by the casket.
That's the last point in time where the officers get to pay their respects and say their thank yous as they're dropping off their carnations. So we wore it over our heart the whole time, and Rob gets to take the carnations with him.
Okay, so it will be full circle. As the men and women in uniform were coming in to the funeral, they filed by Rob with the carnation on their uniform. Then in the end, in full circle, they will file back by Rob and take it off their uniform.
Yes.
And lay it on the casket.
Yes.
It sounds beautiful. Some of our viewers are asking questions. We've talked about some of this, but let's go over it again, Scott. The ropes on your shoulders, what do they represent?
Okay, the red one that's on my left shoulder over each department has different policies of where they wear and what type they wear. You saw a lot of different of the red ropes or red braids that we call them, but we only wear those for line of duty deaths or memorial service, like in DC, we'll be wearing the red braids. On my other, you'll see a thin blue line, which is the same thing as the mourning band. And that entails we are keeping the fine, thin blue line. And I know there's other colors, there's green and there's brown as well, but it's all inclusive between order and chaos, between our community and chaos. That's what that stands for. And we always wear this. We have different colored braids for different ceremonies, but red only for line of duty.
And if you saw in the funeral, the officers from Terre Haute Police Department, they had several braids. There were like 5 or 6 involved in theirs.
Yes, those are a little more ceremonial. Again, it's based on each department policy, and each department's choice, what they want to do. But you'll see everyone out there would have a red braid on.
And someone's asking, what is the white one? What does it stand for? They must mean the carnation, or do you have a white band?
I believe it's probably when they saw the chief and you saw Terre Haute PD, all of the officers have a white one on. That's going to be their policy, or how their dress attire is supposed to look. Ours is specific, like in South Bend, and each one has different requirements that they have to meet based on their policy and their decisions. So, it could be just that maybe they do the red and white. Again, there's different color braids in it, different things.
What about the stripes on your pants, your uniform pants, and on the pants that we see of all the officers today?
So you'll see a lot thicker stripe. Most officers, when they're in their Class A or dress uniforms, there's that, which is the highest level, but the ultimate high level is the honor guard uniform, which you've seen. Typically on the light blue pants, in most cases, or whatever color pants officers are wearing, it is about a 1/2 inch stripe. This is a 1 inch stripe, so it's double the size, and they just wear that for ceremonial purposes.
Okay, and again, to show respect. We want to head out again live outside of the Holman Center if we can show. It is my understanding that there you go, that Terre Haute City Police officer cars are heading out. Again, is this ahead of the procession?
Yeah, so you're going to be awfully close now to where the coach is going to begin to take off. Yeah, they will be the ones directly in front of the coach.
Okay. Because it was their unit.
Yes.
Okay. Once that coach heads out, if we can show or bring up those maps very briefly of where the processional route will go, it will first stop at the Terre Haute Police Department. It'll head south down 13th Street to Erie Canal, to McDaniel Road, and then to 641 South, ultimately getting on to 41 South to Sullivan. Once in Sullivan, they will be on Section Street. The procession will follow Section Street to Washington Street, Wolfenberger to Johnson, ultimately stopping for the committal service at Center Ridge Cemetery there in Sullivan. There's also some road closures that you need to know about here in Terre Haute, and I'm sure that there's also going to be some interesting road situations there in Sullivan as well once they get to the cemetery. We are just moments away from this procession heading out. The coach will be the first thing, carrying Officer Rob Pitts, heading toward the Terre Haute Police Department and ultimately to Center Ridge Cemetery. What are we looking at, Scott?
It's still seeing the remainder of the Terre Haute vehicles. And you may see some that you may not recognize. You may have some DNR or conservation officers in there, maybe some U.S. Marshals and or FBI. Obviously, Rob was close and worked with a lot of the agencies as well. So some of those are likely those vehicles.
We received an email from Sullivan County Sheriff Clark Cottom earlier in the week that said that they expect the processional to go about 20 miles an hour. Is that an estimate?
That's the hope.
That's the hope.
And you know, I'm glad you asked that, because a lot of people don't realize if somebody stops during a procession, even if it's only for a few seconds, you could throw that gap in the procession off by up to a quarter of a mile at times. And I know it's kind of hard to comprehend, but then you talking people have to do 55 or 60 to get back in the proper line. So you have the slinky effect,
Sure.
or the snake effect, or the caterpillar effect, which could be very dangerous. So we try to keep it at a specific speed each time. But for whatever reason, cops were just like anyone else. When a little kid is standing out there and you want to stop and say hi to that little kid, that throws things off. But it's just so hard not to acknowledge that little boy or little girl standing out there thanking us.
Absolutely. Now, another thing that Clark Cottom mentioned is he was guesstimating that the procession would take about an hour and a half. That's probably on the shy side. It may take a little bit longer than that.
So yeah, we run actual variables. One of my South Bend officers actually does that. He had it not only down to the hour, minute, but seconds, and even in the court based on what if a train, what if we have to do this, what if. So there's so many what ifs that are involved in it. But about an hour and a half under the best circumstances.
They will go through all intersections, right? Indiana law allows them to have the right-of-way,
Yes.
the coach to have the right-of-way through intersections.
Yes, and it is actually against the law if you cut through or go around a funeral procession.
Okay.
And there's a lot of cops here.
Well, and NDOT has also been working with the city to coordinate this as well. But railroads, you really can't protect. I wonder if they're dealing with the railroad companies as well.
They do. They have communication with the railroads, so they'll know if there's a train coming, they can slow the train down or maybe even have to stop the train. Now, that's a federal component, so it's a little difficult, but we have a great working relationship with the federal component, with NDOT, with everybody else.
But it's also the railroad company's way of showing their respect for Rob, isn't it?
Sure, absolutely it is.
The Clark County Sheriff Clark Cottom also, or not Clark, the Sullivan County Sheriff Clark Cottom also mentioned that Knox County, his friends in Knox County, were stepping up to patrol Sullivan County while the men and women in Sullivan County are able to attend the service and attend the burial. Again, brotherhood, stepping up when one is needed.
It is, absolutely, and not only that, but you're still looking out. It may not be the community that these officers live in, but it's still a community nonetheless, and they know somebody is missing from there, and they're going to step into it.
As we are seeing here in Terre Haute, state police and police officers from all over, from Carmel, from Indianapolis, from all over, are stepping in to keep our community safe and to keep you safe. Please do not think that your community is not safe right now because of all the officers that are in line. This is getting, it looks like things are really going to start rolling here.
Yeah, once you see the motorcycles, you'll see the actual coach component itself with all the people that are with the coach. You see the chief's car right there.
That is Chief John Plassey. They are ahead of the coach, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Directly ahead of the coach. Okay, this procession is officially starting now. You can see there in the corner, just under the live bug, of people in the community that are standing, showing their respect. In that coach is our friend, Officer Rob Pitts. He is going to make his way to the Terre Haute Police Department.
Yes, for the 1042 or the final call will be. And you'll notice, so they still may be there may be two more officers. There's Rob's bike right there. Matter of fact, it just passed by.
That is Rob's bike with his best friend on it.
The first one out with his best friend on it.
Okay. There are 42 motorcycles involved in this procession, and you said 574 vehicles in general.
Yeah, so at least 2 people in each vehicle. So you're still talking over 1,000 people that are going to be making their way to the cemetery, if not more in these vehicles. So probably, I'm guessing 1,000 to 1,300 that will be at the cemetery itself.
And about 1,700 at last count attended the funeral.
Still don't have the final count yet.
It looks like a lot of these motorcycles are being driven by friends. You know, they're not in uniform. Some of them may be those gentlemen that were holding the flags.
The Blue Knights, yes.
The Blue Knights.
Yes. And then you'll see the 4 motorcycle escorts now. There may be 6 later on, front and rear, but typically it will be no less than 4. They maintain a specific speed and a specific distance from that. That's very difficult to do when you're trying to work the clutch on a motorcycle and turn corners, to make those turns along with the coach.
But again, it is symbolic to never leave Rob's side, correct?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. These officers are keeping a certain distance, a certain speed, to never leave Rob's side. He will never be left until he is finally laid to rest.
Exactly.
There are military members that you said have really pitched in.
Our Air Force friends.
This is along Wabash Avenue, a live look at the procession. They are approaching, it's just a few miles, or just a few blocks from Holman Center to the Terre Haute Police Department, and they are approaching the Terre Haute Police Department for the end of watch call, for the final call.
And when they'll go past the police department enough to where the family cars, the coach and the family cars will stop right at the police department. There'll be a designated area, likely with Rob's picture, likely with his vehicle in the backdrop as well. So the family gets to see all of this and take it in and hear the 1042 end of watch as well. That's going to be very difficult. It is for 99% of the cops. This is where it's the hardest.
Will they actually, is that his best friend? It is. That is Rob's motorcycle. He loved motorcycles. That is his motorcycle and his best friend on that motorcycle. What better tribute?
Pretty sweet bike.
Yeah, it is a pretty sweet bike. Well, will the family members get out? I know you're only predicting. Will they get out of their vehicle for that final watch, final call?
We highly recommend that they do not, but we have seen it before. It's highly doubtful, but again, we have seen it before because they just want to thank everybody that's there. And again, it's human nature, and this is going to be very overwhelming.
The coach, after all of these motorcycles, is the coach with Rob Pitts. It is approaching the Terre Haute Police Department. Here in just a moment, we are going to go live out there and listen in on everything happening in an emotional-filled day. final call was just given. Unfortunately, we were not able to hear that very well, but News 10's Heather Good is there on the scene, and we want to throw it out to her. And Heather, tell us what you heard.
Patrice, we, as you just mentioned, heard that final call, and you mentioned it as well. It was a little bit difficult to hear, but you can see that procession now continuing down Wabash, making a right there on 13th Street, as many people have lined the streets out here today. Gone but not forgotten. 16-year veteran officer with the Terre Haute Police Department, Rob Pitts, killed in the line of duty. He leaves behind a grieving family, including 3 children. His youngest, 5-year-old Dakota, says he misses his dad and loves him so much. No doubt an entire department and community missing him too. Again, as you take a look at these pictures of the procession continuing, many people lining the streets out here along Wabash to pay their respects today. Many people have their phones out documenting what is no doubt a historic and devastating moment for Terre Haute and the Wabash Valley. We are outside Terre Haute Police Department headquarters along Wabash Avenue. This is where a memorial, including Officer Pitt's police car, has been on display to the public. People have been visiting the spot over the past few days to pay their respect. Some of them have left notes, flowers, and other keepsakes. I've spoken with some of the people who have visited this memorial. Some of them are not even from the Wabash Valley, but heard about the sacrifice Officer Pitts made for his community and wanted to come out and honor him in some small way. And today that continues with more people coming to this memorial. You've been mentioning the support from the law enforcement family from across the country, and we've seen that out here today. Moments ago, we saw some officers walking by with badges, not from Indiana. We saw Dallas, we saw New York. Again, this loss being felt by many more than just the people in Terre Haute and the Wabash Valley. This is a loss for many people across the country. You saw that procession again continuing down Wabash. You saw the coach stop in front of Officer Pitt's police car, and they gave that final call. A dispatcher with Vigo County radio called to Officer Rob Pitts, badge number 196. He did not respond. That's signaling the officer is out of service, his end of watch. Again, a very emotional moment for people here. I know it was a little bit difficult to hear that final call. You saw those motorcycles alongside the coach and listening in on that moment. We've got flowers and many things on the car here. And again, I'm gonna step in here as the procession continues again out front here of Terre Haute Police Department headquarters. And Patrice and Scott, you know, this is something that I've been covering since it first happened Friday night, and it's been a very emotional experience for many people. Getting that call that an officer was down, we were there at the scene and talked to officers there, and so many people came from all over the area to lend their support Friday night, and that has not stopped since that time. We've seen so many people come out to support the police department and to support the family. And we talked earlier, and Patrice, I heard you mention it, talking about 5-year-old Dakota, and I was so happy to be able to speak for him and share that message earlier this week. He was talking about how he misses his dad and he loves him, and he hoped that we would share that message so that his dad could see that from heaven. He thought that would help his dad see how he felt, and his mom told me that his heart was aching. He told her his heart was breaking, and we know that he is not the only person feeling that today. Again, many people still out here paying their respects as that procession continues, people going up to the police car and paying their final respects. This will no doubt be out here for a little while longer, again, as people continue to go and visit and leave notes. We saw specifically some notes left for Dakota since we shared his message with you the other day. If you take a look there at that car, you can see those officers there. They are not Terre Haute police officers. They're not even Indiana officers. Again, as I mentioned, I saw at least one with a Dallas patch. I saw one with a patch from New York, again, here to pay their respects. Many people, again, still have those phones out wanting to document this moment. It's a difficult day, and it's been a few difficult days for this community, and it will be for a little while longer now. I'm going to leave you with this look here and send it back to you, Patrice and Scott, back in the studio.